Welcome back as we take you to a very deep and amazing journey of relaxation of bedtime story. Please like and subscribe to the channel so we can get your request on a story you want to listen to. Before we start, make sure you are very comfortable and in a very warm spot. Take a deep breath and make sure to focus your mind entirely on your breathing, forgetting about your worries in this short while as you get the best treatment you can give your brain. Okay, let's begin. Tonight's tale takes us to ancient Ireland, where the boundaries between our world and the other world were once as thin as morning mist. In the province of Ulster, there lived a great warrior king named Cú Chulainn, whose prowess in battle was matched only by his honor. When the moon hung full above the Emerald Hills, Cú Chulainn would often wander alone, his footsteps silent upon the dewy grass. On one such night, as stars scattered like silver dust across the velvet sky, he found himself at the edge of a forest he had never seen before. Ancient oaks with gnarled branches reached toward the heavens, their leaves whispering secrets carried by the gentle night breeze. Cú Chulainn, curious yet cautious, ventured beneath the canopy where moonlight filtered through in dappled patterns. The forest seemed to breathe around him, alive with the soft hooting of owls and the distant melody of a stream. As he followed the sound of water, he came upon a clearing bathed in ethereal light. At its center stood a woman of otherworldly beauty, her hair flowing like liquid silver, her gown shimmering with the colors of twilight. "I am fanned," she spoke, her voice like the gentle chime of crystal bells, "Queen of the Sidhe and wife of Manannán Mac Lir, Lord of the Sea." Cú Chulainn bowed, recognizing he stood before one of the Tuatha De Danann, the divine race who dwelled in the other world. "Great warrior," Fand continued, "I seek your aid. My realm faces a terrible threat from 3 mighty Fomorian giants who wish to claim our lands. They have already taken my husband prisoner beneath the western waves." Cú Chulainn, never one to refuse a noble quest, pledged his service without hesitation. "I shall face these giants and free your husband, my lady." Fand smiled, the expression warming the night air around them. "To reach the other world, you must wait for the moon to touch the horizon at dawn. Then step through the ancient stone arch at Tara's Hill. But beware, time flows differently beyond. What seems a day may be a year in your world." With these words, she vanished like morning mist, leaving behind only the scent of heather and sea salt. Cú Chulainn returned to his fortress at Dundalgan, where his loyal charioteer Leg awaited. By firelight, he recounted his strange encounter, and Leg, though concerned, agreed to accompany his master on this perilous journey. "The Sidhe are known for their trickery," Leg warned as they prepared their weapons. "Even the most honorable among them speak in riddles and half-truths." Cú Chulainn merely smiled, for he believed in keeping his word, regardless of risk. As night surrendered to the first blush of dawn, they arrived at Tara, the sacred hill of kings. There, just as Fand had promised, stood an ancient stone arch, its weathered surface etched with spirals and forgotten symbols. As the edge of the moon kissed the distant hills, the space within the arch began to shimmer like the surface of a disturbed pond. Without hesitation, Cú Chulainn stepped forward, leg close behind. The world around them dissolved into swirling mist, colors blending and separating in dizzying patterns. When the mist cleared, they found themselves on a shore of silver sand, where waves of impossible blue lapped gently against the land. The sky above held both sun and stars, a perpetual twilight that cast no shadows. Before them stretched a vast meadow where flowers of every hue imaginable swayed in a breeze that carried the mingled scents of summer and winter, spring and autumn, all at once. In the distance rose a palace of crystal and pearl, its spires reaching toward clouds that formed shapes of beasts and birds before dissolving into new wonders. "This is Tir na Nog," whispered Leg in awe, "the land of the young where no one grows old and sorrow is unknown." As they approached the crystal palace, music drifted toward them, harps and pipes playing melodies that seemed to capture the very essence of joy and sorrow intertwined. Sidhe folk with eyes like stars and skin that glowed with inner light danced upon the meadow, their movements fluid as water. They parted silently to allow the visitors passage, regarding the mortals with curious, ancient gazes. Inside the palace, they found Fan seated upon a throne of polished moonstone. "You have come," she said, rising to greet them. "The Fomorian giants hold Manannán in a fortress beneath the western sea. To reach it, you must defeat the guardian of the water path, the great serpent Muirdris who allows none to pass." Cú Chulainn accepted this challenge with the quiet confidence that had made him legend. Fan provided them with enchanted kelp that would allow them to breathe underwater, wrapping the slippery strands around their necks like scarves. "These will last until the next full moon," she explained. "Return by then, or remain beneath the waves forever." The warriors followed a path of glowing stones that led from the palace to the shore, where the waves seemed to part before them, revealing stone steps descending into the depths. The water closed over their heads, yet they found they could breathe and speak normally. Colors intensified in this underwater realm. Corals of crimson and gold, fish with scales that flashed like jewels, forests of swaying kelp that reached upward like beseeching hands. They had traveled no more than a league when the water around them darkened, and a massive shape loomed from the gloom. Muirdris, the sea serpent, was as long as 10 war galleys and covered in scales that shifted between green and midnight blue. Eyes like molten gold fixed upon the intruders, and a forked tongue tasted the water between fangs as tall as spears. Cú Chulainn drew his sword, the legendary Cruadan Catuchin that had tasted the blood of 100 foes. The blade glowed with an inner fire that illuminated the murky waters. "Hold, great serpent," he called out. "We seek passage to the Fomorian fortress to free Manannán Mac Lir." The serpent's laugh rumbled through the water like distant thunder. "Many have sought passage. All have become my meal. "What makes you different, little mortal?" Instead of answering with words, Cú Chulainn charged forward, his sword leaving trails of light in the water. Muirdris struck with the speed of lightning, but the warrior was faster still, twisting aside as massive jaws snapped closed on empty water. For what seemed like hours, they battled through the underwater realm, disturbing ancient shipwrecks and sending schools of fish fleeting into darker waters. Leg watched in awe as his master executed feats of strength and agility that seemed impossible even for the legendary Hound of Ulster. Finally, seeing an opening, Cú Chulainn drove his blade deep into the soft underside of the serpent's jaw. Muirdris thrashed in pain, its massive body churning the water into frothy chaos. But instead of continuing the fight, Cú Chulainn withdrew his sword and backed away. "I could slay you, guardian," he said, "but I seek only passage, not your life." The serpent stilled, golden eyes regarding the warrior with new respect. Blood clouded the water between them, yet Muirdris made no move to attack again. "In centuries of guarding this path," the serpent spoke, its voice clearer now, "none have shown mercy. You may pass, Cú Chulainn of Ulster, and when you return, I shall guide you safely back to the shores of Tir na Nog." With a final nod of its massive head, Muirdris moved aside, revealing a deep trench that led further into the ocean's heart. Subscribe for more nightly tales. The trench wound downward in a spiral, the water growing colder and darker with each passing moment. Strange creatures with glowing appendages drifted past, illuminating their path like living lanterns. At the spiral's end stood the Fomorian fortress, a grotesque structure fashioned from the bones of sea monsters and the hulls of countless shipwrecks. Barnacles and strange growths covered every surface, and fish with teeth too large for their mouths swam lazy circles around its towers. Four Fomorian guards stood at the entrance, misshapen giants with the heads of deep-sea creatures, wielding tridents made of whalebone. "We cannot fight our way past so many," whispered Leg. "We must find another way." Cú Chulainn studied the fortress carefully, noting a small opening near its base where waste and bones were periodically ejected into the abyss below. "There," he pointed, "we can enter unseen." They waited until the guards turned their attention to a disturbance caused by a passing whale, then swam swiftly to the opening. The passage beyond was foul and narrow, forcing them to wriggle through decaying matter and the remains of previous meals. Eventually, they emerged into what appeared to be a dungeon. Cells lined the walls, most empty save for skeletons still bound in chains. In the furthest cell, they found a figure slumped against the wall. Even in the dim light, his divine nature was evident. His beard flowed like seaweed, and his eyes held the unfathomable depth of ocean trenches. "Manannán Mac Lir," Cú Chulainn whispered, approaching the cell. The sea god's head lifted slowly. "Who speaks my name in this forsaken place?" His voice was hoarse from disuse, yet carried the rumble of distant tides. I am Cú Chulainn of Ulster. Your wife Fan sent me to free you." A bitter laugh escaped the god's lips. "My captors have tried this trick before, sending false rescuers to raise my hopes. Prove your identity, mortal." Without hesitation, Cú Chulainn displayed the enchanted kelp around his neck. Only the Sidhe could grant the gift of water breathing. "And I bear the sword Cruadin Catuchin, forged in the fires of the other world." Manannán's expression softened. "The Hound of Ulster indeed. My chains are enchanted. They can only be broken by one who possesses something I once owned." Cú Chulainn reached into a pouch at his belt and withdrew a small shell that gleamed with opalescent light. "Fan gave me this. She said it was your favorite from the shores of Tir na Nog." The sea god's eyes widened in recognition. "The singing shell. Yes, that will suffice." When the shell touched the chains, they dissolved like salt in water. Manannán rose to his full height, power emanating from him in palpable waves. "We must move quickly. The Fomorian king will sense my freedom." They had barely left the cell when alarms sounded throughout the fortress. The bellowing of conch shells and the pounding of massive drums. "This way," Manannán commanded, leading them not toward the exit but deeper into the fortress. "My trident and cloak were taken from me. Without them, I cannot command the full power of the seas." They raced through corridors of coral and bone, encountering small groups of Fomorian guards that fell quickly before the combined might of Cú Chulainn's sword and Manannán's bare-handed fury. In the heart of the fortress, they found a trophy room filled with stolen treasures from countless undersea kingdoms. Upon a pedestal of black pearl rested a gleaming trident that seemed to be carved from a single massive sapphire, and beside it lay a cloak that shifted and flowed like the surface of the sea itself. The moment Manannán reclaimed these items, the water around them began to churn. "Hold fast to me," the sea god commanded. When they grasped his cloak, he raised his trident and brought it down with tremendous force. The fortress began to crumble around them as water pressure increased exponentially. Fomorians rushed about in panic as walls collapsed and towers crumbled. Wrapped in the magical cloak, Cú Chulainn and Leg felt themselves rising rapidly through the water, safe within the sea god's protection. They emerged on the shores of Tir na Nog where Fan waited, her face alight with joy at the sight of her husband. The reunion between the divine couple was tender and profound, making even the stoic Cú Chulainn avert his eyes from such intimate happiness. After a celebration that lasted 7 days and nights by otherworld reckoning, during which the heroes were honored with gifts of enchanted weapons and cloth of gold, Manannán approached Cú Chulainn with solemn purpose. "You have done what no mortal has accomplished before. Ask of me one boon, and if it is within my power, it shall be granted." Cú Chulainn thought carefully before answering. "I ask only that you protect the shores of Ireland from invasion as long as honor and courage remain in the hearts of its people." Manannán nodded gravely. So it shall be. When the mists descend upon the coasts of air, know that I am watching, turning away those who would bring harm. As the moon once again touched the horizon, this time rising rather than setting, Cú Chulainn and Leg bid farewell to the divine couple and stepped through the stone arch that had appeared on the silver shore. They emerged at Terra in the mortal world, where they discovered that 3 years had passed in what had seemed mere days. Though much had changed in Ulster during their absence, the tales of Cú Chulainn's exploits in the otherworld would be told around fires for centuries to come, and on nights when the moon is full and the boundary between worlds grows thin, it is said that those with pure hearts can still hear the music of the Sidhe drifting on the night wind, calling the brave to adventures beyond mortal understanding. The legend of Cú Chulainn's journey to the otherworld spread throughout Ireland, carried by bards who sang of his bravery beneath starlit skies. Yet the warrior found himself changed by his experiences beyond the veil, often gazing toward the western horizon where the sun dipped into the sea each evening. Though he returned to his duties as Ulster's champion, something of the otherworld lingered in his eyes, a knowledge of mysteries that set him apart from his fellow warriors. One crisp autumn evening, as leaves of gold and amber drifted on the night breeze, Cú Chulainn stood alone on the ramparts of Dundalgan, watching the stars emerge one by one. A soft footfall behind him announced the arrival of Emmer, his beloved wife. "You are distant again tonight, husband," she said, her voice gentle as she placed a hand upon his arm. "Your body returned from the other world, but I fear part of your spirit remains there still." Cú Chulainn covered her hand with his own. "Forgive me emergency. Having glimpsed such wonders, the mortal world sometimes seems." He paused, searching for words. "Faded like a tapestry too long in the sun." Emmer's eyes, wise beyond her years, studied his face in the gathering darkness. "Then perhaps you should seek counsel from one who understands both worlds." She nodded toward the forest edge, where a figure stood beneath an ancient oak. Even from this distance, Cú Chulainn recognized the silver-haired woman Fand, though she now appeared more human than divine. Her otherworldly glow dimmed to pass unnoticed among mortals. With a questioning glance at his wife, who nodded her permission, Cú Chulainn descended from the ramparts and crossed the moonlit field toward the waiting queen of the Sidhe. "You honor our realm with your presence, Lady Fand," he said, bowing deeply. Fand's smile held sadness. "The honor is mine, Hound of Ulster. I come bearing both gratitude and warning." She gestured toward a path that wound into the forest depths. "Walk with me a while." As they followed the silvered path, creatures of the night fell silent in respect or perhaps fear of the Sidhe queen. "Manannán has kept his promise to protect Ireland's shores," Fand explained, turning aside raiders with mist and phantom islands. "But some threats come not from across the sea, but from beneath the earth itself." She stopped beside a small pool where moonlight reflected perfectly on the still surface. "The Fomorians you helped defeat had allies. The Firbolg, ancient dwellers of Ireland who retreated underground when the Tuatha Dé Danann claimed the land. For centuries they have slumbered, but your victory in the underwater fortress has awakened their hatred anew. With a gentle touch, Fan disturbed the pool's surface. The ripples resolved into images, vast caverns beneath the hills of Ireland, illuminated by strange phosphorescent fungi. Misshapen figures moved through these spaces, hammering at forge fires and sharpening curved blades. "They prepare for war," Cú Chulainn observed, his warriors eye noting the methodical nature of their preparations. "Not merely war," Fan corrected. "Extinction." The Firbolg king, Morrigan's consort Bodb, has created a poison to taint the very soil of Ireland. Once released, it will kill crops, sicken livestock, and eventually poison every well and stream. Nothing will grow, and your people will slowly starve. The warrior's face hardened at this news, his hand instinctively moving to the hilt of his sword. "Then I must stop them before this poison is deployed. Where can I find their main stronghold?" Fan waved her hand over the pool again, and the image shifted to show a mountain split by a narrow ravine. Sliab na Caelai, the Hag's Mountain. The entrance lies behind the great waterfall at its heart, but it is heavily guarded. She looked directly into Cú Chulainn's eyes. "You cannot go alone this time. The Firbolg are numerous, and their king possesses dark magic drawn from the blood of the earth itself." Cú Chulainn nodded slowly. "I shall gather Ulster's finest warriors. We have faced dire threats before. Mortal weapons alone will not suffice against creatures born of stone and darkness," Fan cautioned. From within her cloak, she produced a small pouch that seemed to shift and change color like the scales of a fish. "These are seeds from the gardens of Tir na Nog. Plant them around your fortress tonight, and by morning they will have grown into weapons infused with otherworld magic, enough to arm 7 champions." She pressed the pouch into his hand. "Choose your companions wisely, Cú Chulainn. This battle will test more than strength of arm. It will challenge the very spirit of each warrior." With that warning delivered, Fan began to fade into the night air, her form becoming translucent. "One last counsel," her voice whispered as she disappeared entirely. "Seek the Morrigan's aid, though she may seem an enemy. In this matter, her interests align with yours." Alone in the forest, Cú Chulainn contemplated the pouch in his hand and the weighty task before him. The Morrigan, the great queen of battle and death, had both helped and hindered him throughout his life. Seeking her aid would be like grasping a double-edged sword by the blade, yet Fan's wisdom was not to be ignored. Upon returning to Dundalgan, Cú Chulainn summoned his most trusted companions, Leg, his faithful charioteer, Conall Cernach, his foster brother whose spear had never missed its mark, Ferdiad, once an enemy but now a steadfast ally, Southern Mac Fintan, whose battle frenzy rivaled Cú Chulainn's own, Noisiu, whose keen eyes could spot a hawk from a league away, and Sencha, elderly now but still Ireland's wisest druid. In the courtyard beneath the waxing moon, Cú Chulainn opened Fan's pouch and scattered the glimmering seeds in a circle. The soil accepted them eagerly, and within moments, tender shoots emerged, growing at supernatural speed. By midnight, 7 trees stood where none had been before. Trees with trunks of silver bark and leaves that chimed softly in the breeze. As dawn approached, the trees began to transform. Branches twisted and reformed into weapons of extraordinary beauty. A spear with a shaft of living wood that would never break. A sword whose edge gleamed with inner starlight. A shield that hummed with protective energy. A bow that adjusted its tension to the archer's need. A sling whose stones would always find their target. A staff topped with a crystal that detected lies. And a cloak of leaves that rendered its wearer invisible in woodland settings. These gifts from the otherworld will serve us well, Cú Chulainn told his assembled warriors. But our greatest weapons remain courage and loyalty to one another. He outlined the threat posed by the Firbolg and their poison, his words kindling determination in the eyes of his companions. Before we march to Sliab na Caelai, however, we must seek counsel from one whose wisdom in matters of battle exceeds even our own. The companions exchanged uneasy glances, for all knew he spoke of the Morrígan. She will demand a price, warned Sencha, leaning heavily on his new staff. The Phantom Queen gives nothing freely. Cú Chulainn nodded grimly. The entrance behind the waterfall will be heavily guarded, Cú Chulainn observed, sketching a rough map in the dirt. We cannot hope to fight our way through directly. Conall Cernak, ever the tactician, studied the makeshift map thoughtfully. Perhaps we needn't use the main entrance at all. He pointed to the mountain's peak. Most cave systems have multiple openings for air to circulate. If we can find such a vent, I can help with that, offered Noisiu, whose legendary eyesight had already saved them from several ambushes. At dawn, I'll climb to a vantage point and search for signs. Steam escaping from cracks, unusual vegetation patterns, anything that might indicate an alternative way in. The plan agreed upon, the companions settled into an uneasy rest, keeping watch in shifts throughout the night. Cú Chulainn took the final watch, greeting the sun as it rose over the eastern horizon. Its light revealed the true magnificence of Sliab na Caelai. Not merely a mountain, but a massive stone monument created by nature, or perhaps by hands far older than human memory. Deep ravines scored its sides like ancient battle scars, and at its heart, visible even from their distant camp, thundered the great waterfall behind which lay their objective. Noisiu returned mid-morning, his face alight with discovery. There's a series of small openings near the western ridge, he reported. Too small for a man to enter, but they connect to a larger tunnel system. One opening in particular emits warm air and the scent of forge fires. Sencha, whose enchanted staff had been revealing hidden truths throughout their journey, nodded sagely. We need not enter physically to strike at our enemy. From his pack, he withdrew a cloth bundle that, when unwrapped, revealed 7 small clay figurines. These are vessels for our spirits. Through them, we can send our consciousness into the mountain while our bodies remain safely here. The druid explained the ritual that would allow this temporary separation of body and spirit, a dangerous working that required absolute trust between participants, as each warrior's body would lie vulnerable while their essence traveled within the clay avatars. Despite the risks, all agreed this approach offered their best chance of success. As dusk approached, they arranged themselves in a circle around the fire, each holding his clay counterpart. Sidhe led them through the ancient words, his staff glowing with increasing brightness as the spell took hold. One by one, the warriors slumped forward as their consciousness transferred into the figurines. Only Leg remained fully aware, tasked with guarding their defenseless forms during the spiritual journey. Within the clay vessels, the companions experienced a disorienting shift of perspective. The world appeared enormous around their tiny forms, yet they retained all their skills and could communicate through thought alone. Sidhe's magic carried them swiftly to the mountain vents, where they slipped easily into the narrow openings that would have been impossible for their human bodies to navigate. The tunnels beyond widened gradually, leading deeper into the mountain's heart. Here, the Firbolg had created an underground kingdom of surprising sophistication. Caverns had been expanded and reinforced with carved pillars, while channels diverted underground streams to create fountains and small lakes throughout the complex. Everywhere, the stunted, powerful forms of the Firbolg moved with purpose. Mining, crafting, preparing for the war they believed would return them to supremacy.